Open the podcast bay door as hell.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 44 of Welcome to Geektown. I'm your host, Kurt Onstead. I've been a proud geek all my life, being into role-playing games, board games, sci-fi, fantasy, and especially superheroes and comics. And I want to help others join me in those pursuits. But I've found that sometimes people can get overwhelmed or feel left out because they don't already have what some consider the requisite knowledge to be considered a fan. And that's where Welcome to Geektown comes in. Here you can ask your questions without feeling like a gatekeeper is calling you out for not yet being fully versed in every aspect of your new interest. Time for this month's shout out to my patrons. Thank you once again to constant supporters Matthew Saint, Utuk Zul, Josh Bald, and Julio Herrera. I really appreciate you contributing and helping offset the costs of this endeavor. If you'd like to help the show and get a shout out like these for yourself, go over to patreon.com/welcome to Geektown, and for just $1 per month, you'll get that, plus outtakes from the show and past scripts. This week, we're doing another in the ongoing series of The Replacements, where we look at characters that have taken over a superhero mantle from the original bearer of the name, discussing how they came to be in that role, and what happened to them after the original inevitably came back. Thanks to Justin B. for asking the original question that inspired this feature. The character we're looking at this time is none other than the Green Goliath himself, the Hulk. Thanks to movies and TV shows, most people are familiar with Bruce Banner. David Banner if you only watched the Bill Bixby-Lou Ferrigno show. But he's definitely not the only one in the comics who has smashed his way through the Marvel Universe. The first person besides Bruce Banner to gain the Hulk's powers is a character who has been by the Hulk's side from the very beginning. Rick Jones was the teenager that drove out onto the Gamma Bomb testing range on a dare, not knowing that an active test was taking place at the time. Dr. Banner rushed out to bring the reckless teen to safety, unaware that the countdown he had ordered stopped was continuing. Banner was able to get Rick into a trench right before the bomb went off, protecting Rick from the blast, but Bruce took the full brunt of the gamma radiation, which is what kickstarted his transformations into the Hulk. Rick, feeling responsible for his condition, stuck around as Hulk's sidekick through the first years of his series. Rick's full history could be an episode in and of itself, as he's been rarely stuck in comic book limbo and has been through more changes in his status than nearly any other comic book character. Let's hit some of the highlights. In addition to being a sidekick to the Hulk, Rick has also spent some time at Captain America's side, after helping to assemble the Avengers the first time. After his brief time as Bucky, he was bonded to the original Captain Marvel twice. That's Marvel, not Carol Danvers. Check episode 14 if you're unaware of who I'm referring to. And was the linchpin of the Kree-Skrull War, when the Kree Supreme Intelligence unleashed the Destiny Force inside Rick. Shortly after Captain Marvel's death, Rick returned to being Hulk's sidekick. Feeling responsible for Banner's condition, Rick decided to try to become a Hulk himself in order to stop Banner's Hulk, and so purposely exposed himself to gamma rays. However, in this case, the gamma rays did what they would do in our universe, and so Rick was dying of radiation poisoning. Bruce was able to cure him of that disease, but he he contracted a type of blood cancer in the aftermath. Rick was in a hospital getting a blood transfusion to stave off the illness when the building was attacked by monsters created by the Dire Wraiths. The Space Knight, known as Rom, saved Rick. Rom was a licensed comic based on the toys, and since Marvel no longer has the license, he's rarely referenced these days. Despite still slowly dying from cancer, Rick teamed up with Rom to help defeat the Dire Wraiths. The Wraiths were eventually banished to Limbo, and Rom left Earth to wander space again, leaving Rick behind. Fortunately for Rick, the Beyonder cured him of his cancer shortly thereafter during the Secret Wars 2 crossover event. This finally brings us to Rick's tenure as the Hulk. At this point in time, Bruce Banner had been split from the Hulk. Although, without Banner's influence, the Hulk was a completely mindless and destructive force. In addition, both Bruce and the Hulk were dying due to their separation. Banner and his Hulkbusters captured the Hulk and were preparing to re-merge the two. Thunderbolt Ross attempted to intervene and prevent the procedure from going forward, but Rick got in the way. During the scuffle, Rick ended up in the chemical bath that was merging Hulk with Banner, which is how Rick became a Hulk of his own, turning into his green-skinned alter ego at night. His Hulk persona was similar to the one most people are familiar with, speaking mostly in monosyllables and often asking to be left alone. Meanwhile, Banner ended up as the Grey Hulk. The Hulk was originally colored gray in his very first issue back in 1962, but the more primitive printing process of the time prevented that gray from being consistent throughout the book, leading Stan Lee to decide to change the color to green. The Grey Hulk is a more cunning creature than the usual green monster, and working together with the leader, the two were eventually able to siphon off Rick's gamma radiation and cure Rick of his Hulk persona. Since his brief tenure as a Hulk, Rick has continued to appear all over the Marvel Universe, filling many roles. In his civilian life, he's been a musician, an author, and a talk show host, with his wife Marlo. On the superhero side of things, after another period of time hanging with the Hulk, first with the Grey Hulk, then later with the merged Hulk that had Bruce's intelligence, he was bonded with the third Captain Marvel, the son of the original. Again, check episode 14 for a few more details. In the aftermath of the Destiny War, which you can read about in the miniseries Avengers Forever by Kurt Busiek and Carlos Pacheco. His time with the new Captain Marvel was written by Peter David, who also had penned many of Rick's adventures with the Hulk during his record-breaking run on that book. Under Peter's pen, Rick is portrayed as someone who has spent so much time with superheroes that he recognizes the tropes and thus is unfazed by anything, and often hangs a proverbial lampshade on the stories he's involved with, giving voice to the jaded, but not bitter, fans' point of view. Following his time-sharing with Captain Marvel, Rick has gone on to once again become a gamma-irradiated character. This second time, instead of the Hulk as his model, it was Hulk's Russian counterpart, the Abomination, who served as the template for Rick's transformations. The leader and MODOK, running a group called the Intelligentsia, transfused the Abomination's blood into Rick, hoping to create a weapon they could use to kill Banner. However, Rick fought off their control and went off on his own. Calling himself A-Bomb, Rick fought against the Red Hulk, we'll get to him in a moment, on the side of the heroes. That was his status quo until Hulk decided to rid the world of every gamma-induced creature he could. Known as Doc Green, this Hulk was smart like the earlier merged Hulk, but was more selfish and deceptive. Rick accepted the cure and also tricked Betty Banner into taking the cure as well, taking away her red She-Hulk powers. Rick was next seen in the Avengers Standoff storyline. A side effect of the Gamma Cure briefly gave Rick superintelligence, which he used to become the hacktivist known as the Whisperer. Leaking top-secret information, Rick was hunted down and eventually caught by S.H.I.E.L.D. Rick joins S.H.I.E.L.D. briefly, but when he discovers that Captain America has had his history retconned by the Cosmic Cube to be a sleeper Hydra agent, in a storyline called Secret Empire, Rick once again turns against the government. Hydra Cap sentences Rick to death by firing squad for treason. This being comic books, Rick does eventually get better. His corpse was experimented on by a secret organization known as Shadowbase, turning him once again into an abomination-like creature simply called Subject B. In addition to the usual super strength, Subject B also has the ability to shoot acid strong enough to hurt the Hulk and prevent his healing factor from kicking in. The Hulk, now known as the Immortal Hulk due to his constant returning from the dead, ripped the abomination layer off of Rick, revealing a living but emaciated body underneath. Upon recovery, Rick has been shown to have new powers, including energy projection and flight. But this is so recent that we haven't really seen what, if anything, he plans to do with these powers, and if he'll adopt yet another superhero identity. Like I said, Rick's history is long and complicated. Let's move on to someone a little simpler. I mentioned the Red Hulk earlier. His secret identity was set up as a mystery for the first couple of years of the Hulk series in which he appeared, starting in 2008, both to the characters we followed in the series and to the readers themselves. However, it was eventually revealed that this new incarnation of the Hulk was none other than General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, father of Betty Banner, and the man who had spent most of his time in the comics hunting down the original Hulk with the force of the military behind him. Like Rick Jones's A-Bomb iteration, this transformation was arranged by the Intelligentsia as part of a new super soldier program. Red Hulk has a slightly different power set, as he is powered by cosmic rays in addition to gamma radiation. He retains his intelligence in his Hulk form, and in addition to the usual super strength, he's able to drain energy from nearby sources, including taking enough gamma radiation away from the Green Hulk to return him temporarily to his Bruce Banner form. Also, instead of getting stronger with increasing anger, he gets hotter, radiating enough heat to melt sand into glass, although it exhausts and weakens him when he gets too hot. This vulnerability was exploited by the Hulk when they fought again, and Ross is eventually captured. Although the Red Hulk is much more aggressive than the standard Green Hulk, Captain America is able to convince Ross and his alter ego to briefly join the Avengers. But Ross soon strikes out again on his own, creating his own team. They take the name Thunderbolts, previously used by a few different teams, and work various missions to redeem mistakes Ross and other team members feel they made in the past. After that team disbanded, Ross was depowered by Doc Green and was incarcerated for desertion. He spent some time in a military prison, but by the time of the Secret Empire storyline, mentioned earlier, General Ross was once again free. Unfortunately for him, Ross was killed around this time by an unknown assailant, and Captain America himself was framed for the crime. Unlike other gamma-irradiated people, Ross hasn't yet been resurrected, although his body was dug up by Carnage recently, so we may see his return again sometime in the near future. There was a second Red Hulk after General Ross. He was also a military man. His name is General Robert Maverick. He was the head of yet another government project dedicated to making super soldiers, although this one originally created the creature named American Kaiju. Imagine Godzilla with an American flag painted down his chest, and you're pretty close. Yes, it's supposed to be exactly as ridiculous as you're picturing. Even though American Kaiju was sent to fight against the New Avengers, General Maverick decides to join that team when it reforms as the US Avengers. The General is gifted with a Red Hulk plug-in that allows him to take on the Red Hulk's powers for about an hour at a time, although we never see this Red Hulk absorb or emit energy like Ross's Hulk. Like Ross, he maintains his standard level of intelligence, and with his military training is quite a formidable fighter. The 1 hour limitation is extended later, but in the Secret Empire storyline, there it is again. For a Captain America story, it sure involved a lot of Hulks. We find that the nanites that allowed for the longer transformation period also let Hydra control the Red Hulk. Fellow US Avenger Sunspot burns out the nanites, giving Maverick control once again, but the combination of the various stresses end up damaging the General's health, and making any future transformations to the Red Hulk potentially life-threatening. He takes this risk again during the 2016 Avengers storyline, No Surrender. When his condition is revealed to the rest of the team, he's quickly benched, but the stubborn General, still in Red Hulk form, dons a modified Iron Patriot armor. Check the Iron Man Replacements episode number 33 for more about Iron Patriot, and dubs himself the Iron Hulk. During this fight, he is completely drained of the gamma radiation in the Red Hulk plug-in, which permanently reverts him back to his human form. He has not been seen in the comics since then. Like Ross and Maverick, our next Hulk also took on his powers voluntarily. This Hulk is Amadeus Cho. First appearing in Amazing Fantasy number 15, Volume 2, published in 2005, not the same Amazing Fantasy number 15 that was Spider-Man's first appearance. Amadeus is a child prodigy who has been dubbed the 7th smartest man on Earth. In a world that has Reed Richards, Bruce Banner, and Tony Stark, there's some pretty stiff competition, so number 7 is nothing to sneeze at. This genius is saved from being killed by the Hulk, and Cho views both Banner and the Hulk as a friend, always seeing his actions in the best possible light. During the World War Hulk storyline, he teams up with Hercules, who also felt he owed Hulk a favor due to mistakenly attacking the Green Goliath earlier in their history. After World War Hulk ended, Hercules and Cho continued to work together, and Amadeus learns from the goddess Athena that he is supposed to be the next Prince of Power. Hercules is his title. However, in order for this to happen, Hercules will have to die. Cho does everything he can to prevent this, but the prophecy comes to pass anyways, and Hercules sacrifices himself to save the universe. Cho briefly takes on the mantle of Prince of Power, although the power is intelligence and not strength, as man has supposedly moved forward according to Athena. Amadeus uses all of his resources to find and resurrect Hercules, which he soon does, leading into the Chaos War storyline, where Hercules, Cho, and many others defeat the ancient evil god known as Amatsu Mikaboshi. After a few guest appearances, Cho finally takes on his Hulk persona in the series titled The Totally Awesome Hulk. Revealed in flashback, we find out that Bruce Banner had absorbed a massive amount of radiation, helping with an accident on Kyber Island. Afraid the ensuing meltdown would hurt or kill many, Amadeus developed special nanites to absorb the Hulk's radiation and transfer enough of it to transform himself into the Hulk at will. Having controlled the reaction, Cho's Hulk retained his superintelligence, and he used his newfound powers to hunt down and fight monsters around the world with his sister Maddie. But, as is typical for the Hulk, this happy status quo was not to last. Cho starts having blackouts, becoming the Hulk without remembering it. He slowly loses control over his time as the Hulk, and as a last resort, launches himself into space to prevent him from harming anyone else. He ends up on the same world that Hulk was accidentally exiled to, Sakaar, and while there, his Dark Hulk persona takes over completely. Dark refers to his personality, but he's the same color green he was originally. And he declares war on his enemies, of which there are now many. Using more nanobot technology, Maddie is able to reduce the power that Hulk has over Cho's mind and body. Amadeus seems to be stable once again. He's not nearly as strong as he was when he went by Hulk, but is still taller, stronger, and more emerald-hued than his normal body, and goes by the name Brawn. As Brawn, Amadeus has been a member of the proactive super team known as the Champions, and is currently the field leader of the Asian-based team called the Agents of Atlas, under the direction of super spy Jimmy Cho. So, that's your rundown of the other Hulks. But not She-Hulks, we covered them in a previous episode. Does this inspire you to ask a question about a character, or maybe an event, or something else in the geek realm? If so, please send me an email at welcometogeektown, all spelled out, @gmail.com. Or ask your question anonymously if you prefer, by clicking Submit a Question at www.welcometogeektown.com, the number 2 in this case, geektown.com. Other contact options include facebook.com/welcometogeektown or Twitter @geektownpodcast. Also, if you'd like to support the show directly, come join the Patreon at patreon.com/welcometogeektown, where for just $1 per month, you can get access to full scripts of the shows, outtakes, and a monthly shoutout. You can also help the show grow by subscribing and giving a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts to join the Geektown City Council, which helps other people find the show so we can all tell them, "Welcome to Geektown, population, us." Welcome to Geektown is written, narrated, edited, and produced by me, Kurt Oxted. Theme music is by Aaron Levitz, logo art by Archie Santana. All other sound clips are the copyrighted material of their respective owners, and no infringement is intended, falling under fair use.